struggle with poor self-esteem? Have you reached your 60s and are still wondering why you don't have the figure you always wanted? Have you considered taking Ozempic or another weight loss drug? Well, in this video, I'm going to share with you my weight loss journey and why, even at 70, I've considered taking the jabs. And this isn't a story about how post-menopause I've had to get to grips with a new body reality. This is the body I've always had, plus or minus a few pounds, and which even at 70 I still can't seem to accept. But I will give you some tips and tricks that you can take forward if you want to lose a few pounds, because I do too. So maybe we can do it together. Now, I must stress here that I'm not a doctor, I'm not a scientist, and I'm not a medical professional. I'm simply a 70-year-old woman talking about my experiences of being overweight, losing weight, and how I feel about it at 70. And what I plan to do to lose those few pesky pounds. So sit back and relax while I take you on my weight loss journey and see if any of this resonates with you. I was always a fussy eater, a lonely only child with bickering parents. I only really enjoyed simple food, such as plain pasta with butter and cheese, porridge, ice lollies, and the occasional can of Coke. Vegetables, except for frozen peas, were a real no-no, and tomatoes were only acceptable if they came in ketchup form. Around the age of 9 or 10, when I started to get pocket money, and my parents divorced, I would go and buy chocolate bars galore, 2 or 3, to eat during the day while I was at school. My best friend and I would go to the sweet shop before class, and then I'd consume these chocolate bars throughout the day, refusing to eat most of my school food as I found it unpalatable. I was a skinny child. I remember being able to put my hands under my ribs and showing off to my friends that I could do that. But I was also poor at gymnastics and not encouraged by my gym teachers to improve. My parents were completely unsporty and weren't interested in encouraging me to participate in any sport. Although I did go to dance classes until I was around 10, when I discovered horse riding. Unfortunately, horse riding, although a fantastic sport, is not great for getting fit, as the horse does most of the heavy lifting. So my poor eating habit, combined with lack of exercise, set me up for unhealthy teenage years. At the age of 14, I signed on with Weight Watchers, even though I weighed under 8 stone and was only 5'2". I could see that I had a tum, but my girlfriends didn't. So I felt like I needed to lose weight because I felt self-conscious. After a couple of weeks visiting Weight Watchers, where I was by far the youngest in the class, I gave up and returned to my snacking. By the age of 14, I was about 14 pounds too heavy. Because I'm exceedingly small-framed, I have small wrists, hands and feet, so my excess pounds made me look a lot heavier than they would have done in someone with a larger frame. I became increasingly unhappy with my size, and this made me eat even more. It was a vicious cycle. My cousin remembers visiting me from the States and noticing that I would eat my way through a huge packet of Jacob's cream crackers with lashings of butter and blackcurrant jam, or a partially baked loaf smothered in butter and honey. But little did she know that I was also making cake mix on the sly and eating the mix rather than baking the cake. I eventually grew to 5'4", but my weight was always a stone, that's 14 pounds, or more heavier than I should have been for that height. It wasn't until I met my first husband that I managed to lose it, and although my weight has fluctuated over the years, the only time I put on a lot of weight and then lost a lot of weight was after my second divorce, and I've stayed around about 7 pounds heavier than I would like to be ever since. I'm 70 now, so you would have thought I would have learnt to accept my body as it is. But although I am more at peace with it than I was, I still yearn for a leaner body, one that I last had probably at the age of 11. So this leads me to weight loss injections. When I first read about these, I immediately wondered whether I would be a suitable candidate. The whole concept was a massive trigger. Finally, could these so-called skinny jabs be the answer? This was even after I'd written an ebook about how to lose those last pesky pounds. Was I really going to resort to injections to get my weight down? I was tempted, but I was also scared. Of injections, for one thing. I hate needles. Also, it did seem that these drugs were really for the overweight, which technically I'm not. At the moment, I weigh around about 9 stone 2, which is about 130 pounds, which isn't heavy, but my waist is 31 inches and my hips are 39, so I'm not exactly svelte. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm small boned. As I began to read more about these drugs and to understand what they did and how they helped people to lose weight, it appeared that they weren't about triggering a response in the body, but in the brain. The drugs would cut out the food noise, the constant thinking about food, when you can have it, what you can have, the what will I eat for dessert when you've only just started your main course, and when can I have a snack 5 minutes after I've just finished a big meal? Because the drugs work on your brain to stop that constant chatter and stops you from eating too much, thereby cutting down on your portion sizes. Now, in my ebook, I examine why we eat, which might seem like a silly question because we have to eat to live. But if that was the only reason, we'd all be slim. We eat for pleasure, for the taste, to savour something delicious on our tongues. In social situations, sharing food with friends and family, for comfort when you're sad or lonely or depressed, or because you can't stop. It's compulsive. And so these drugs sound like they can help eaters who can't stop to stop, because their brain will tell them, you've had enough. But what these drugs are doing is tricking the brain, or teaching it to behave in a certain way, to not eat to excess, but to eat enough and no more. And by doing that, because you will be cutting down on your portion sizes, you will lose weight. That seems to be what the drugs are doing in a nutshell. But my food noise isn't loud anymore. In fact, I can go for hours without thinking about food, especially when I'm busy. So although these drugs sound attractive, they aren't going to deal with my particular weight loss issues. And they're not designed for the likes of me. They are designed for those who are overweight by some considerable amount, and were originally designed for those with type 2 diabetes. Now, a lot of my eating is habit. I must have something sweet after something savoury. Why? I don't really know, because I've always done it. So what if I changed that? Would I feel deprived? Now, since I wrote my book, there's been a lot more research and a lot more knowledge about what losing weight does to the body. And some of that is to be found in the book Ultra Processed People by Dr. Chris Van Tulleken, a really quite shocking book about ultra processed food. But for my book, I did draw on research by Professor Tim Spector, by Dr. Giles Yeo, and the dear departed Dr. Michael Mosley, amongst others, who have so much robust and proven scientific research to impart about food and diet. Now, after I'd written the book, I signed up for Zoe's personalised nutrition programme, and you can watch my video about that experience, which I'll link below. But although I found it helpful in understanding what food did to my gut, it didn't actually help me to lose weight. So, have I decided to try the so-called skinny jab? Well, no, I haven't. Firstly, I'm not a suitable candidate, as I've only got around 7 to 10 pounds to get to what I would consider an optimum weight of around 120 pounds or 8 stone 7. Now, if I wanted to get them here in the UK, I'd have to pretend I was overweight, order them online. Secondly, like I said, I'm scared of injections and taking drugs I don't need. I once went to see a diet doctor who gave me slimming pills, and he'd been recommended by a journalist in the Financial Times. He gave me these weight loss drugs which turned out to be dangerous. He was a diabetes doctor who was giving out pills willy-nilly. Thirdly, if these injections are about getting you to eat smaller portions, why can't I change my mindset and put less on my plate? Well, I can and I will. And I'm going to, with your encouragement, lose inches off my waist and my hips, aiming to achieve a waist of 29 inches and hips of 38 inches, which I think probably equates to a weight loss of around 7 to 10 pounds. And as part of that health kick, I'm going to start exercising, something I haven't done for a very long time, at least a couple of years. I used to during lockdown. I was really diligent. I used to follow Caroline Jordan or Fit by Mick on YouTube every other day, but I've let that lapse in the last couple of years. So I'm going to start again and see if I can build up my muscles, which, as we know, is super important as we age, and I'll do a separate video on that. And to help me in my fitness journey, I'm really excited to be trying this ring. Now, this was sent to me by a company called Ultra Human, The video is not sponsored. They've sent it to me for me to try it and review it. Now, I've literally just received it yesterday, so I haven't even set it up yet. But I am excited to try it because I'm an Android girl. I don't have an Apple Watch. I used to have a Fitbit. My Samsung phone has an app for fitness, but it's not that great. So I'm really interested to find out whether this tiny little thing is going to be able to help me on my fitness journey. So here are some steps from my ebook, which I'll also link below, which I have used in the past to help me lose those few pesky pounds and which I'm going to revisit. So step 1, list your top 5 favourite foods that you eat on a daily basis. These can be anything from crisps, chocolate bars, be specific. So for example, Pringles or a Bounty bar or a Hershey bar, to a burger or a bowl of pasta. Close your eyes and imagine that you're eating one right now. What do you love about it? Is it the taste? Is it the texture? Is it the smell? The way the chocolate or the salt melts on your tongue? How do you feel after you've eaten it? Do you want another one straight away, or do you feel satisfied? Note down how you feel about each one. What time do you eat and where? Make a note of all the times you're consuming something, whether it's breakfast, lunch, dinner, or any other time you eat, and whether it's a snack or a full English or anything in between. Note down where you are at the time. For example, on the sofa, at the dinner table, at your desk at the office, on a train, in a car. Now, think about your health right now. Do you feel well? Or are you experiencing little niggles, like your tum's feeling a little bit sore, your bowel movements aren't the best, or you're lacking in energy? If you have been checked out by your doctor and there's nothing medically wrong with you, think about when those little health niggles occur. Do you wake up in the middle of the night when you've had too much to drink? Go to the loo and then can't get back to sleep for hours? Well, that was me a couple of years ago. Or does your tum feel a little bit delicate after you've eaten a particularly delicious but filling dessert? Close your eyes and try to remember, then jot down your thoughts. Step 2. Now that you've got a picture of what you love to eat, when and where you're eating, and how those foods make you feel, you can start to consider how you can make some changes to lose those pesky pounds. Now in my case, I need strong taste. I add chili flakes to virtually everything. And I love crunchy, textured food, which displeases my dentist no end. So I need to find a healthy alternative to biting into a chocolate bar, and I found that frozen fruit does the trick. Sprinkled with a tiny bit of sugar and sometimes with some Greek yogurt, this little snack satisfies my sweet tooth and gives me something to crunch on, with the added benefit of being lower in calories. And lately, just to please my dentist, I've been defrosting the fruit just a tiny bit, so it still has crunch, but it's not quite so damaging to my fillings. Another change is that I eat vegetables every day, and crunchy ones at that. If I'm making a vegetable tray bake or a stir fry, I will always include Brussels sprouts or broad beans because they add texture or starchiness that other more watery vegetables don't. I also include chunks of vegetable in my soups so I get bulk as well as flavour. Now consider what changes you could make to your diet to lower your calorie intake, particularly from eating ultra-processed foods. What substitutes could you make so that you still love the food you eat and are not sacrificing taste for a few pounds of weight loss? Step 3. If this kind of eating is new to you, make a plan. Think about the week ahead, what foods you have in the store cupboard or in the fridge, and ensure that you have your favourite tweakable foods so that you can access them with ease and create delicious meals and snacks without any hassle. The great thing about this way of eating is that you do not need to eat separately from the family. You can still eat what they eat, but just a bit less of it or a tweaked version. Step 4. Find a smaller bowl or plate from which to eat. Make sure they're pretty and a pleasure to eat out of or to look at. This small tweak will ensure that you don't overfill your plate or bowl and will keep your portions under control. I know it might sound silly, but that's what I do. I have a smaller bowl or plate than my husband when we have dinner, and that helps me to control my portion size if I don't go for seconds. Step 5. Ditch the scales and use a tape measure instead. And you'll notice during this video I've talked about inches. I have mentioned pounds and stones, but I've also mentioned inches, and that's because I hate using scales. Firstly, they're often not accurate, I used to have to step on mine when I had one of those electronic scales about 3 times to get the reading I desired. Secondly, you'll become a slave to them. They'll call at you from the corner of the bathroom saying, "Hop on, you know you want to." But you do not want to, because either they'll lull you into a false sense of security or they'll depress you. No, best to get the tape measure out and use that as a way to keep track of your losses. Or you could just try on your tightest pair of trousers and watch them loosen over time. And on that, BMI, which stands for Body Mass Index, which uses your height and weight as an indicator of obesity, is increasingly being seen as unhelpful. And doctors and scientists are turning to using a tape measure to measure your waist as a better indicator. So according to this latest research, I'm just about okay. Because in this article it says for a woman of 5'3", okay, I'm just over that. One's waist shouldn't be more than 32 inches, so I just about make the cut with a 31-inch waist. So let me know in the comments, does any of this resonate with you? Do you fancy joining me on my inch loss journey? My lovely friend 84-year-old Sandra Salin here on YouTube recently dropped 20 pounds and describes how she did it in the video that I'll link below. So you might want to watch that too. For her, it was very much about portion control but still eating what she loves. So that's it. Please give this video a thumbs up if you've enjoyed it, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel before you leave. And just to let you know, I have a monthly newsletter, and in that I don't just talk about diet. In fact, I rarely talk about diet. I mostly talk about beauty, fashion, and some lifestyle, entertainment, other content creators, films, books, TV, and all the other bits and bobs that bring us joy. And thank you so much for watching. It means the absolute world to me. It really does. And I hope you're all doing really well. And I look forward to seeing you on my next video. Bye!